Hello, dear friends. I'm Grandma Jeannie. Welcome back to my workshop. I'm so glad that you're here tonight. I've got another house on my workbench that needs to have a couple of things fixed on it. It's in pretty good shape, but it's got that same issue that the last one I had has. And I'm going to show you again how to fix that because this is a common issue on these dollhouses. This is the house I'm working on tonight. Now, if you saw my recent video, I went to Sigourney, Iowa to a sweet little antique store called the Happy Hutch, and I bought two houses that have the red roof on them like this. And those houses were made in T-cone. The other one I had was from 1948. This one is their version from 1956. Both of these houses are in excellent condition, but they both had the same issue. The front door on the other one was completely loose, and on this one, the bottom hinge is there, but the top hinge is gone. And I can tell you, even though that bottom hinge is there, they are not very durable and they don't hold up very well. This is what that little hinge looks like. It's just a little tiny flap of metal. So they break off very easily. In fact, this one's bent, and I imagine if I try to straighten that, that will break that off. So I'm going to go ahead and replace this with the paper clip hinge like I did on the other house. But first I'm going to clean it off. Let me cover the basics of how I do that, just in case you're new to my channel. I use a paper towel and I use a non-sudsy cleaner. It could be something like Spray 9 cleaner, or in this case I put Awesome cleaner in here that I got at the Dollar Tree. Something like 409 would also work. Don't use too much liquid, don't spray directly on your house, and don't rub too hard. You can wash these graphics off, but I'm going to wash off every surface and just get it as clean as we can. That wasn't super dirty, but I knew it would benefit from a cleaning, and it did. And the colors are bright and beautiful, prettier than ever. Before I fix that door, I'm going to touch up the paint. Now, this is my palette, and I've showed you this before, and I used to cover it with wax paper. Then after I paint a while, I can rip that wax paper off and throw it away. But recently I bought a roll of freezer paper instead. The advantage of this is that it's plastic covered on one side, so the paint won't ever soak into that paper. Also, I wanted to use this for another craft, and I got this then recently at the grocery store to use for dual purpose. The other thing I wanted to show you, in case you don't know, when you buy something on a roll like this, there'd be a tab here on each end that you can poke in. And when you poke that in, that keeps that roll in there. So when you go to pull that wax paper out, the roll will stay in there. You can use that on wax paper, freezer paper, and aluminum foil, anything that comes on a roll. So I'm going to put a little white. Now when I use white on my dollhouse, I call it dollhouse white because really it's going to be a little bit of an off-white. And this paint actually is an ivory or an antique white. I also have a bright white here in case I need to lighten that up a little bit. So I'm going to put some of my antique white and some of my regular bright white on the palette. Probably mix those together. If it needs to be a little darker, I'll have to add a little bit of brown in there too. When I color tested it, it almost looked like it needed to have a little bit of black or a little gray in there. So I put a little bit of black on my palette, touched it to the side, and dabbed just a little bit in there to make that a very, very light gray. And I think we're getting a pretty good match here. So I'm just going to combine my paint right to that little scratch area. Now this paint is just acrylic paint. If you don't like it, you can wash it off. If you need to change the tint a little bit, you can do a second coat with a little different tint, and it almost always dries a little darker than it goes on wet. I have the paint touched up. It took very, very little paint on this house, and it's just almost, I'd almost call it mint condition. Let's work on this door. Here's my plan. I put some little dots here on this little tiny flat edge, and my plan is to take a nail and to pound the nail in and make little tiny holes. There'll be 6 little holes there along that flat edge that I'll use to attach my paperclip hinge to. And then I'll use some wire to fasten that in place. Let me get those little holes tapped in there. That worked pretty well, and it took me just a few minutes. I do want to tell you, I started with a little bit bigger nail, which was easier to use and had a sharp point. And after I got a little dimple in there, I switched to a nail that was a little smaller around just to make that hole a little bit wider, but I didn't want that hole too big. Let me get that hinge fashioned out of the paper clip. You need one of these paper clips that's just a little bit bigger, not a tiny one. Let me see if I can get it where you can see it a little better. There you go. So it's about as big as, well, not as long as my thumb, but close to it. So I'm going to straighten it out as straight as I can, and then I'll bend it into the hinge. So in order to keep this hinge from sliding up and down where you don't want it, I'm folding this paper clip in half, and I'm going to make that kind of a tight bend right there. So it'll have right in the middle of the door, it'll have a little protruding area. I call it like a little wing or something that will help stabilize that hinge so it doesn't slide up and down when you don't want it to. After I do that, I'm going to straighten it back out. I'll show you in just a minute. I've got that just the shape I want it. It's got the right angles here on the end, which will replace the hinges, and then this little wingding part in the middle that will act as a stabilizer. So that will go on the door like this. And this stabilizer will wire to those holes in the middle, and then I'll attach up here and down here just to hold it into place. And I was able to determine this hinge, this wire lines up with this hinge, and this wire lines up to where this hinge used to be, and I could feel with my fingernail where that was supposed to be. So let's get it wired into place. So for wire, you just need wire that's small enough to go through those holes, but strong enough that it will just hold that into place. And that's not going to take a lot of strength. That's not going to take a lot of wear or anything. So I'm going to use this twisty. This is a long one, but it's like you would get on a loaf of bread. But I'm going to strip this plastic off and use that wire. This is almost done, and it came out really well. So I took that upper hinge paper clip and poked it in there, the bottom one down here, along with that original little piece of hinge that was still there, the original hinge, and I poked those in those holes where those hinges go. So you can see that door is going to open and shut. Now I'm going to turn it around the other way and bend those hinges down, those paper clip wires that look like this. Bend this one down and this one either down or up, whichever way it wants to go. Let's turn it around and do that. Once I stick my hand in there, you won't be able to see what I'm doing, but I'm going to point it out to you. Right here is that top paper clip sticking out, that little extra part. It's right there, and the bottom one's here. So I'm going to try to bend this one just down. I'll just put my hand in there and pull that down, and this one will bend it up, and I think will be perfect. All right, it's done. It's secured, and look, it'll open and shut, open and shut, just like it's supposed to. I am very happy with it. I'm in love with this house, and I'm glad you guys were here with me tonight. Thank you so much for joining me tonight. It was a pleasure to have you here. I'm glad we got this house fixed up again. And remember, Grandma Jeannie loves you.